Hello and welcome to the Robots and Pencils Academy. I'm your host, Jonathan Rasmussen. Any application requiring some form of basic authentication is going to require a login page. In this episode, we're going to look at how to use the UI text field as a means of capturing the login information. Now, before we get into the login page, let's just take a quick look at how a UI text field actually works. Let's create a new project, a single view application for the iPhone using storyboards. And I'm just going to call this demo text field demo. Go ahead and create that wherever you like. Then let's just go into our storyboard and drag out a few elements here. I'm going to make this an iPhone 4 size just for a little more real estate. Let's just drag out a few elements here, starting with a text field. Let's just drag that into our view. And I'm just going to make it a little bit wider so it covers the screen here. And actually, I'll put it down here. And then I'm also going to drag out a label. So for this demo, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to type some text into this text field. And then we're going to have that text just set the label. This will be really good because this will sort of walk us through the mechanics of how to capture text from a text field and then update a label. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to want to do is just basically get some properties for my text field over here. So I'm going to create a property called my text field. And I'm going to do the same for our label. So just like we've seen before, just control dragging over these UI elements. I'm going to create some properties for these guys. And then I'm going to flip over to my .m implementation. Now there's basically three things we need to do whenever we're using a text field in a view controller. First, we need to set the delegate. So we're going to, first of all, in our view controller, show that we implement the text field delegate interface or protocol. What that means is now we're saying, hey, we can handle any events that you're going to want to throw at us from a text field delegate. And to register for that, we're just going to set ourselves up as the delegate down here by taking our text field, grabbing the delegate from it, and setting that equal to ourselves. That's how we register ourselves as the delegate. Always remember this. This is important. It's easy to miss that step. So we've implemented the protocol. We've registered ourselves up as the delegate. Now we're ready to handle some events from that. If we go look into this UI text field delegate, you'll see that everything in here, I just push Command and then hit the mouse button. You'll see that everything in here is optional, meaning we don't actually have to implement all of these callbacks. There are, however, two that we will want to implement. I'm just hitting Control Command back arrow to get back to this file. And the two that we're going to want to implement here are these two here. Text field should return and text field did end editing. All we're doing in here basically is we need to decide when to give up the keyboard that pops up when we start typing in that text field. If we have something of length, we're giving up control of the keyboard by calling this method here, resigns first responder. The responder is that little blinking caret that appears in the text field. And by calling resign first responder, we're basically giving up the keyboard and then dismissing it. What I've decided just in this implementation is that if there is no text, I'm just going to allow the user to keep on typing. So that's how we basically handle dismissing the keyboard. Once there is text in the text field, we're ready to grab it with this text field did end editing. This passes in the text field for us, from which we can get the text, and then here we can set it equal to our label. It's that easy. So now if we run this, let's take a look at what this looks like. Now we're going to click in here. Notice how the keyboard comes up, and whatever we type in here will appear down here. There, that's how we can take some input from a text field and actually update a label. That's all you need to know as far as mechanics for the UI text field. Now what we have here is something very similar to the demo we just saw. This is another view controller with two text fields at the top. We have a password text field, a username text field on top, a password text field underneath, and a login button so that when someone clicks login, we're going to simulate a login to the system. But everything else is the same. We're still implementing the UI text field delegate. here's our two methods that we need to implement. The one thing we need to handle now, though, is when we get the text from our text fields, we need to figure out what text field am I getting this from? Is it the username or is it the password? To help us differentiate between a username and password, it's handy to create two properties here, two strings, which will capture the text from a username and capture the text from a password. But what we really need is a way to differentiate between those two UI text fields. To help us do that, we can define some tags, a username tag and a password tag. What these will let us do is when we go to set up our view.load methods down here, we can now tag those text fields specifically. We can give our username text field the username tag, and we can give our password text field a password tag. Now, when we go into this field here, when we go into this method here, we can do something like this, where we can look and ask our text field that was passed in, are you the username tag? If you are, I'm going to grab your text and set you equal to the username property we defined up above. And if it's not you, then I know it must be the password, and likewise we can grab the text from the text field and save it into our password property. Now the only thing left for us to do is to create an action for this login. So in this case we will call this login pressed. And if they do come in here and log in, we will do the following. We will call a simple method called isValid, which will pass in a username and password. If they log in successfully, we'll put in a message that says you're in. And if their login fails, we'll say you're out. And two helper methods to help us do that are here, isValid, which just checks to see whether or not their username and password are equal to foo and bar. And just a simple utility that pops open a UI alert view with a given title and message. Now at this point we could run the project, but before we do, I'd like to just drag in a simple background image. I have a nice image here that I'm just going to drag into my project. I'm just going to copy the destination items in and make that available. And then what I should be able to do is just make a little bit of room here. If I click on my media library over here, I should see my background image, and I should be able to just drag it out here on top of my view. And I'll just place it, about there. Oh, now you can see what it did here. It actually added the view to my login button. I don't want that. Let me try that again. I'm going to drag it in here, and sometimes it's a bit tricky. You have to play with it a bit, but when you see that green arrow, that's a good sign. There, I think it went in okay there. If I hit my document outline, I can see my image view right now is obscuring the text fields and login buttons. So I'm just going to drag it up here to put it behind the text field and login button. That just gives it a little bit of a nice background. Okay, so if we run this now, let's go see what this looks like in the simulator. So here we have our username and password. If we type in foo along with bar, hit return, and then click login, hooray, success, we're in. And if we go and type something else in here, something that doesn't match our password, you can see login fails and we can't get in. Now one thing to note with this is you have to be a little bit careful. If you come in here and just allow your users to type and then hit your login button, even though it looks like they typed in the right username and password, it could, from their point of view, look like it fails. The reason for this is the text is only grabbed from the text field after we hit the return key. So even if we type bar in here correctly, B-A-R, and hit login, it fails. Well, in that case it passed because I had hit return previously and it had been saved. But something just to think about from a design usability point of view is whether or not you want to make your login button visible after they enter the keyboard to get rid of this kind of an annoying UI thing, or in fact you can hide the button or make it disappear into the keyboard so that they very clearly have to click return before hitting the login button. Just something to note and something to think about from a design point of view. So there you have it. That's just a quick introduction to the UI text field, just showing you how to basically pop up a keyboard, grab the text, and then if you have multiple text fields on your screen, how to differentiate between them. I hope you found that useful. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.